Her eyes met mine, steady and resolute as she announced, "Our time together is done." Her tone was devoid of hesitation, carrying only a blunt certainty. So I collected my things and left. A few weeks later, I found myself living with her cousin. Now my phone hums constantly with her calls, but I let them go unanswered. There was no fiery dispute, no broken plates or sobbing pleas. That's what cuts the deepest. It was an unremarkable Tuesday morning, the sort that blends into the rhythm of everyday life. We were seated at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug as she scrolled through her phone, seemingly unbothered. Without looking up, she said, "It's over between us." I froze, my breath catching in my throat. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask. She lifted her gaze, her face stripped of warmth or doubt. "This isn't what I want anymore. You have to go." That was the entirety of it. No reasons offered, no further discussion, just a detached verdict. As if she were a judge and I'd been found guilty of some unnamed crime. Her composed, almost apathetic voice made it clear she'd emotionally detached long before she spoke those words. I could have begged or demanded clarity, but what would that accomplish? Why try to convince someone to hold on to me when they'd already cast me aside as unimportant? I walked to the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase and started packing. My hands moved mechanically while my thoughts spun, wrestling with what lay ahead. I had nowhere to go, my friends lived in tight quarters, and my parents were a 2-hour drive away. Then her cousin Lila came to mind. Lila and I weren't especially close, but we'd met at family gatherings. She always struck me as authentic, someone who listens intently and makes you feel at ease without effort. When I called her, I didn't expect much. "This is sudden, but I need a place to crash for a while," I said. Her reply was instant. "Come to my place. You can stay as long as you need." That evening, I arrived at her doorstep, my suitcase rolling behind me. She welcomed me with a warm smile and said, "Make yourself at home." Then in a softer voice she added, "She's crazy for letting you go." At first, I viewed Lila's place as a temporary haven, a place to regroup until I figured out my next step. But she insisted I take the guest room instead of the sofa. We fell into an easy rhythm. She'd brew coffee each morning, leaving a mug for me on the counter. I began preparing dinners a few nights a week. Our evenings were filled with casual chats about work, movies, and favorite tunes. Over time, those conversations turned more profound. One night, we stayed up until nearly 2 a.m. on the couch, a half-empty bottle of wine between us. We exchanged stories of our pasts, old relationships, and lingering regrets. At one point, she looked at me and said, "You deserve better than the way she cast you aside." Her words, straightforward yet powerful, struck me deeply because I knew, in my heart, she was right. About a week after I moved in, my phone rang. My ex's name lit up the screen. I stared at it, unsure whether to pick up, but let it go to voicemail. A text followed soon after. "We need to talk." I ignored it. The next day she called again. This time I answered. "What do you want?" I asked. "I heard you're living with Lila," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. "So what?" I responded. "I don't think that's right." I couldn't help but chuckle. "Why do you care? You're the one who ended it." After a long pause she muttered, "It just doesn't sit well with me," and hung up. From then on, her calls became a daily routine. Some were sharp with anger. "You're making a big mistake." Others were laced with forced sentiment. "Remember our beach trip last summer?" It wasn't about wanting me back. It was about her need to keep a grip on me. She couldn't bear the idea of me moving on, especially with her cousin. Meanwhile, my connection with Lila grew stronger. She was sharp-witted, compassionate, and made me feel truly seen in a way my ex never did. 2 weeks in, we went out for dinner. It wasn't officially a date, but there was an undeniable spark, something I hadn't noticed before. Or perhaps I'd been too wounded to recognize. Back at her place, we stood in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, talking well into the night. She looked at me and said, "I'm glad you're here. I hope you stay for a while." The way she said it held a meaning beyond just sharing her home. 3 days later, my ex showed up at Lila's door. We were watching a movie when a sharp knock broke the moment. I opened the door to find her standing there, arms crossed, eyes blazing with intensity. "Can we talk?" she demanded. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "What's this about?" I asked. "This thing with Lila, it's wrong." I laughed, stunned. "You ended our relationship. You told me to leave. You don't get to dictate where I go or who I'm with." Her jaw tightened. "She's my family." I fired back. "And you thought kicking me out wouldn't change anything?" For the first time, she seemed to grasp that she no longer had control. She left without another word, but the calls continued. Every day, my phone glowed with her name. I stopped answering altogether. Lila told me I owed her no explanations, not anymore. And she was right. My life was no longer hers to guide. Over time, Lila and I grew even closer, our bond evolving beyond mere housemates. We weren't rushing into anything serious, but there was a foundation of trust and warmth that felt solid. If you'd told me a month ago I'd be living with my ex's cousin, I'd have laughed it off. Yet here I am, happier than I've been in years, with someone who truly values me. My ex keeps calling, struggling with the fact that I've moved forward. The truth is, moving on wasn't easy, it was essential. She declared our chapter closed, and I took her at her word. Now, I'm with someone who makes me feel alive, while she's the one wrestling with letting go.